Every January, the Beverly Hilton transforms into the high altar of celebrity culture, the Golden Globes. It's supposed to be a night of self-congratulation, where the wealthiest 0.1% of the entertainment world remind the public why they are the moral gatekeepers. But in 2020, the air vanished from the room. Ricky Gervais didn't just tell jokes, he conducted a public execution of Hollywood's reputation. When he looked at a front row packed with A-listers and told them they had no position to lecture the public about anything because they spent more time with Jeffrey Epstein than their own families, the cameras caught something rare, genuine, unfiltered fear. Look at the footage. You'll see Tom Hanks's jaw tighten. You'll see the smiles of studio heads turn into frozen masks. That wasn't offense. It was the look of people who knew the clock was ticking. They knew about the logs. They knew about the flight manifests. Gervais was offering the 200 million people watching at home a crack in the wall, a peek into a world where the heroes we see on screen are often the very people protecting the monsters off-screen. It was a warning shot, but in the dark corridors of the industry, the octopus was already moving to protect itself. The industry has a very specific way of dealing with those who shine a light where it's not wanted. They don't just fire you, they erase you. Take Jim Caviezel. This wasn't a fringe actor. This was a man who led one of the most successful independent films in history, The Passion of the Christ. He had the status, the talent, and the momentum. But the moment he touched the subject of child trafficking with the film Sound of Freedom, the machine turned on him. Caviezel alleged that major media operators issued a death warrant for the film. He claimed that the message was sent to every studio in town. If you touch this, you are finished in 3 years. Think about that. Why would a movie about saving children be treated like radioactive waste by the kindest industry on earth? Caviezel's answer was the 8-armed octopus. You can cut off one producer, one host, or one studio head, but the system itself remains intact. The limbs are designed to be replaceable so the core can keep feeding. The be kind deception. While the industry was labeling Caviezel insane and trying to bury the reality of trafficking, one woman was sitting on a throne built entirely on the concept of virtue, Ellen DeGeneres. For nearly 2 decades, her midday program was the gold standard of wholesome entertainment. The Be Kind brand was a multi-million-dollar shield. It was the perfect cover. If you are the person telling everyone to be nice, who would ever believe you were running a culture of fear behind the scenes? In 2020, the shield shattered. 36 former employees stepped out of the shadows and spoke to BuzzFeed, describing a toxic environment that sounded more like a prison than a talk show. We're talking about ethnic discrimination, unwanted touching, and a workplace where staff were allegedly told not to look Ellen in the eye. When the DOJ later began unsealing millions of pages of investigative material, people began to look at that toxic workplace through a different lens. Was the toxicity just a personality flaw, or was it symptom of something much deeper? Ellen's name appearing in the Epstein Investigative Index wasn't a glitch. It was a data point in a much larger pattern. The obituaries and the silence. The Ellen DeGeneres show didn't just end in May 2022. It collapsed under the weight of its own reality. But the most chilling part of the story didn't happen on camera. It happened in the months that followed. 2 months after the final episode aired, Anne H., Ellen's former partner, was dead. Her car was filmed traveling at speeds that suggested a total loss of control before it slammed into a home and was consumed by fire. In her final interviews, H's words were haunting. The abusive environment was something I understood. 4 months later, the Be Kind campaign lost its most visible face. Steven, Twitch, boss, the DJ and executive producer who danced into our living rooms every day, was found dead in a hotel room. To the public, he was the happiest man in Hollywood. His grandfather spoke to the media stating Twitch was perfectly normal just 48 hours before it happened. But behind the happy-go-lucky exterior was a reported stockpile of cocaine hidden in shoeboxes, the classic signs of self-medicating a reality that no one was allowed to talk about. Two people intimately linked to the Ellen empire gone within 120 days. Both deaths officially closed. Both families left with questions that the 3.5 million pages of the 2026 DOJ release might finally begin to answer. The circle of conviction. This isn't about rumors. It's about the calendar. Look at the men Ellen publicly championed. Sean D. Combs was a regular fixture on her stage, dubbed Cuddle McNugglestuff, while the audience cheered. In 2024, the federal government moved in. In 2025, he was found guilty on charges that involved the very things Ricky Gervais had joked about years prior. Then there's Harvey Weinstein, the man who controlled the gate to the Oscars. Ellen was pictured in his inner circle for years. When you see the same names appearing in the same logbooks, at the same parties, and in the same investigative files, coincidence stops being a valid explanation. The Octopus uses these high-profile figures as its limbs. When one limb becomes too hot, like Diddy or Weinstein, the system cuts it off to save the rest. But the index released by the DOJ in February 2026 suggests that the system is running out of limbs to sacrifice. America's Dad and the flight logs. Perhaps the most disturbing thread in the Octopus's web leads to the most untouchable man in Hollywood, Tom Hanks. For 40 years, he has been the human embodiment of the American spirit. He played the heroes, the patriots, and the voices of our childhood. But image is a commodity in Hollywood, and the people who manage that image are the most powerful operators in the world. When Ruth Ashcraft went public with allegations that shook the internet, describing a history of abuse involving the highest tiers of the elite, the industry's response was a deafening silence. As the Epstein files began to circulate, the rumors of Hanks fleeing the country became a focal point of the digital underground. While the mainstream media refuses to bridge the gap, the 2013 emails from Epstein's publicist provide a permanent digital record that Hanks was connected to that social world. Whether it was social engagement or something deeper, the fact remains: the most wholesome man in the world was navigating the same waters as the most notorious trafficker in history. The final reveal. We are now living in a time where the conspiracy theories of 5 years ago are becoming the court records of today. The 3.5 million pages released by the DOJ are not just paper, they are a map. They show us how the "Be Kind" slogans were used to mask toxicity, how the America's Dad was used to mask a dark social circle, and how the 8-armed octopus kept the public distracted with champagne and awards, while the reality was being buried in shallow graves and sealed files. Ricky Gervais told that room of millionaires that they were in no position to lecture us. He was right, because as the lights finally shine on the dark corners of the industry, we aren't just seeing the actors, we are seeing the machine. And for the first time in Hollywood history, the audience isn't clapping. They are waiting for the truth.